this is Suzanne Seeley with Suzanne Style Snips. You know, when I think about all of the things that I love about the Trump International Hotel, there are so many, regardless of your politics. They're undeniably pretty exquisite. One of the most important things I like is the level of professionalism of the people. I was able to talk to several different people that worked there, and they told me, each person told me, that he or she had to go through several levels of interviews before receiving notice that they were hired by the Trump organization. They want their staff to be professional, to be well-groomed, to be sophisticated, and so they have picked from among the very best. One of the bartenders, in fact, told me that he had worked in Washington for 30 years before he got that job with Trump International Hotel, and that he had to go through 4 interviews himself. Another bartender had been through 7 interviews. I mean, it's pretty remarkable, and you notice it at once. You feel like you're in a nice place. You're treated very well. About security in the building, yes, indeed, there's security, and they've got their eyes on everything. But when you walk in the building, you never get the feeling that you're being scrutinized, or that things are strict, or that there's impending danger in any way. The security agents are very, very friendly. They don't check your bags, which surprises me. When you walk in the building, it's a very understated kind of security. So that's welcoming. It allows you to go in and feel comfortable as well. I also really like the fact that this building is on federal land, owned by the federal government. We own it, the American people. It is not sold. It was leased, as I had said before, it's leased for 60 years and then an extended lease for 40 years. And that land remains in the federal government. Now, I know that our President Donald Trump came in under schedule and under budget, which is kind of remarkable, but he certainly has experience and knows how to put up a fine building. But one thing he doesn't say when he touts that fact is that he spent $200 million renovating this building. It's a huge building. And another thing I like about it, it has the biggest ballroom in all of Washington, D.C. I guess he's getting ready for the next presidential ball. That ballroom is over 13,000 square feet. There's also over 38,000 square feet of event space. I like that the building harkens back to many historical facts. It pays homage to Benjamin Franklin. There is a Jefferson study and a Lincoln library that houses books, chapters and books of his life. I think that's very interesting. The Benjamin study is particularly nice because all of the walls have renderings and paintings and etchings and so forth of the cherry blossoms, which is the flower of Washington, D.C. So I like that. I think that's very, very interesting. In keeping with the Gilded Age, the turn of the century, the new modern age, this Richardsonian Romanesque revival building in its grandness, which was supposed to be on par with London's buildings and Paris's buildings. I like that they chose that style. It's a bit of Belle Epic as well, but it's a very ornamental style, and it's to show the prestige and the prosperity of our new country. And people wanted it to look really grand, and so I like that the supervising architect of the Treasury Building, which was in charge of all the federal buildings at that time, his name was Edmondson, that he was chosen to be the architect of this building. So that's kind of nice, I think. You know, post offices all around the country have been torn down and making way for new buildings with other purposes because the post office has grown smaller and smaller and smaller. And a post office is really kind of a central spot in a town or in a city, and people want their post office to reflect the nature, the architecture, the culture of that particular space. And this post office very much did at that time. Also, the people, when they were building this first federal post office in the Washington, D.C. area, they were missing the clock tower that many of the European plazas and squares had. That was sort of the central gathering place, or the central heart of a city. So they wanted a clock tower, and they eventually added it to the post office building. Now, another thing I like is that clock tower, which houses the Congressional Bells, or the Ditchley Bells, because they were given by the Ditchley Foundation in London as a gift for our bicentennial. I like the fact that that is run by the Federal Park Service, and they run a tour every single day. It isn't run by Donald Trump. Those bells actually were slated to be put in the United States Capitol, but they were too huge to go into the Capitol. There wasn't an appropriate space. So they put them in the post office building. Of course, they had to reinforce the floor. They're huge bells, from 300 to 3,000 pounds, 2.5 feet to 4 feet. So they're really very, very large. And that belongs to us. Standing up on the observation deck where the bells are, the Congressional Bells or the Ditchley Bells, you're able to look out at this most sweeping view of Washington, D.C. It is absolutely stunning. So that's something really to like. And I really have to talk right now about Nancy Hanks. She was the head of the National Endowment of the Arts, and for many years during the 70s, she alone is responsible for actually saving this building. It was slated for complete destruction 2 times to make way for the Federal Triangle Complex. She tirelessly worked for her Don't Tear Me Down campaign, which was to save this building, and was very successful, and she managed to have it put on the National Register of Historic Places, and that saved the building. So we owe this to her. There was a time where the building actually was named after her, and then until that was before it was put up for a bid as a hotel, because after they had restored this building, then they needed a purpose for it and decided it would become a hotel. Aside from the 263 guest suites that are lined up all around the main atrium, you can also rent a townhouse. So if you have something special coming up, I don't know how much it costs, but plenty. I just want to make a final comment on the location of this building. It is on the site, 1100 Pennsylvania Avenue. Of course, it wasn't built during the Civil War, but after the Civil War, there was a major procession that passed. Then in 1916, the Women's Suffrage Parade or movement passed in front of the old post office building. And then JFK's Kennedy funeral procession passed right in front of it as well. And so that spot in Washington on Pennsylvania Avenue, in between the White House and the Capitol building, that is a critical spot. It sees everything that happens in Washington. So I'm going to do a blog on this. Actually, I would like to take you all inside so that you can see the atrium, the old sorting room. You can see the wonderful space that it is, because it is a tremendous space. It's just the feeling of openness when you go there is one of the most remarkable features. Thank you very much. This has been Suzanne Style Snips. Please like and subscribe.